The night was cold and the ruins were silent. A tiny alien girl hid beneath broken stones, her small body shaking as she hugged her knees. Her people were gone. Their homes burned, their voices silenced. All she had left were the terrifying stories she had heard since birth, stories about humans. They said humans were monsters, they said humans devoured the weak, and they said no alien child would survive if a human ever found them. Her stomach growled with hunger, but she dared not move. Every shadow looked like danger. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. Her wide eyes filled with tears as she whispered to herself, "Please don't consume me. Please don't consume me." It was the only prayer she knew. The moonlight cut through the cracks in the broken walls, and she pressed herself deeper into the darkness, hoping the night would hide her. But then she heard it. The sound of boots crushing the rubble, slow and steady. Her heart raced as the steps came closer, echoing through the ruins like thunder. She wanted to run, but her legs felt heavy. Frozen with fear, she held her breath, waiting for the monster to appear. A shadow stretched over her hiding place, and she saw him. A human soldier stood there, tall and frightening in his dark armor. His eyes scanned the ruins until they fell. On her tiny form, the girl whimpered, covering her face with her trembling hands. Her voice cracked as she begged, "Please don't consume me, I beg you." The soldier paused, tilting his head, as if he could not believe what he had just heard. He knelt down slowly, his movements careful, almost gentle. "I will not harm you," he said in a calm voice, one that carried no anger, no cruelty. But the girl could not believe him. People had taught her otherwise. She shook her head fiercely, her small eyes glowing with tears. No, humans are monsters, you will eat me." The soldier's expression softened, his eyes no longer cold but filled with something strange, something she had never seen before. It looked like sorrow. From a pouch at his side, he pulled out a small piece of food, something soft and warm. He placed it on the ground between them and pushed it closer to her. "Eat," he said quietly. "You are starving. This will help you." The little alien stared at the food, her stomach twisting with hunger. But her fear was stronger. She thought it was a trick, a way to make her trust him before he consumed her. Still, the smell filled her nose, sweet and warm. Her tiny hands trembled as she reached forward, then stopped, her eyes darting up at him again. The soldier did not move. He only watched her, his face patient. Finally, the child grabbed the food and pulled it close. She sniffed it, then took the smallest bite. Her eyes widened. It was not poisoned. It was not bitter. It was delicious. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she ate faster, unable to stop herself. The soldier said nothing, only sitting quietly, as if guarding her from the shadows. When she finished, she wiped her mouth and curled up again, staring at him with fear and confusion. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why did you not hurt me?" The soldier sighed, his gaze drifting to the broken sky above them. "Because not all stories are true, little one," he said, softly. "Sometimes monsters are not the ones you think." The words struck her like a storm. For the first time, doubt crept into her heart. Had everything she believed about humans been a lie? Or was this human different from the rest? The ruins groaned in the wind, and the firelight from distant battles glowed faintly on the horizon. The little alien girl pulled her thin blanket tighter around herself, her eyes never leaving the soldier. She wanted to run, but a strange feeling rooted her to the ground. It was not trust, not yet, but it was something close, something dangerous. She had survived this long by fearing humans, but tonight, that fear was starting to crack. The soldier stood slowly, offering his hand to her. "Come," he said, his voice steady. "You cannot survive alone." Her heart pounded as she looked at his hand. Her mind screamed at her to stay hidden, to stay safe. But her stomach was full, her body was tired, and for the first time in days she was not alone. With a trembling breath, she placed her small hand in his. The human's grip was strong but not crushing. He pulled her gently to her feet. And for a moment, the night no longer felt so terrifying. The alien child did not know if she had just made the greatest mistake of her life, or the choice that would change everything. The ruins faded behind them as they walked into the unknown, and though her heart was heavy with fear, a spark of hope flickered inside her for the very first time. The tiny alien walked beside the human, her small hand trembling inside his larger one. The ruins of her village faded behind them. Swallowed by darkness and silence, every step made her heart race. Every sound of his boots on the stone reminded her of the stories. Yet the soldier did not drag her, did not threaten her. He only guided her forward, slow and steady. She wanted to ask questions, but fear sealed her lips. They reached a broken shelter, an old human outpost that stood half buried in rubble. Inside, the air was warmer, a small fire glowing at the center. Other humans sat around it, their armor scratched, their faces tired from battle. The girl froze at the sight, her eyes wide with terror. She pulled back, trying to escape, but the soldier gently squeezed her hand. "It's all right," he whispered. "They will not harm you." The other soldiers looked up, surprise flashing in their eyes when they saw the alien child. One of them frowned, his voice sharp. "What are you doing bringing that creature here?" The girl shivered at the word creature, her body shrinking back into the shadows. But the soldier stood firm, his voice calm. "She is a child, nothing more. She needs food and safety." The others muttered among themselves, suspicion heavy in the air. Still, none of them stopped him as he led her to the fire. The warmth touched her skin, chasing away the chill that had haunted her since the night of the attack. Her stomach growled again, and the soldier gave her another piece of food. She ate slowly this time, her eyes darting between the faces of the humans. They watched her with curiosity, some with pity, others with unease. But no one struck her. No one tried to harm her. This confused her more than anything else. When she finished eating, the soldier gave her a small blanket. It smelled strange, of metal and smoke. But it was soft. She clutched it tightly, sitting as close to the fire as she dared. The soldier sat near her, his voice low so only she could hear. "What is your name?" he asked gently. Her lips trembled. She hesitated, then whispered, "Luma." The name sounded fragile in the air, like a secret she had never dared to share before. The soldier nodded. "Luma," he repeated as if memorizing it. "My name is Kale." The sound of his name was strange, heavy yet warm. She whispered it under her breath, "Kyle." And he smiled faintly. For the first time, she saw the lines of his face soften. No longer the mask of a monster, but the face of someone almost human to her eyes. As the night stretched on, the fire crackled, and voices of the soldiers faded into tired silence. Luma kept stealing glances at Kale, still unsure, still frightened. Her mind battled with itself, one side screaming the old warnings of her people, the other whispering of the food, the warmth, the gentle voice that did not match the stories. Her small heart ached with confusion. Later, when the others had drifted into restless sleep, Luma whispered, "Why did you not eat me?" Kyle looked at her, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "I told you before," he said softly, "because we are not monsters, because you are a child." She shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "But my people said, they said humans drink our blood. They said you use our bones as weapons." Kale sighed, his face darkening with sorrow. "War makes lies grow like weeds," he said. "Both sides tell stories to make the other into monsters, so no one feels guilt when the killing begins." Luma's heart tightened. Could it be true? Were all those terrible tales just lies? But if they were lies, then why had her people died? Why had the humans come with fire and metal? She wanted to ask. But her throat closed with fear. Instead, she whispered, "Will you kill me when the others are gone?" Kyle's eyes softened again, his voice steady. "No, Luma, I will protect you." The words struck her like sunlight breaking through clouds. Protect. She had never heard a human use that word for one like her. The fire burned low, and Luma lay down, wrapping the blanket around her small body. Her eyes grew heavy, but sleep did not come easy. Every crackle of the fire made her flinch, every shift of the soldiers reminded her she was surrounded by the enemy, and yet she drifted into dreams with Kale's words echoing in her mind. "I will protect you." In the deep hours of the night, Luma awoke to hushed voices. Two soldiers whispered near the doorway, their words sharp. "She's dangerous," one said. "You know what the command will say, that thing is not a child, it's a tool." The other grunted. "The captain already thinks she's important. He called her the key. If they find out he's keeping her alive, there will be consequences." Luma's small body froze, her heart pounding like a drum. The key, she thought. What did that mean? Why did the humans want her alive? Fear flooded her again. Stronger than before? Was Kale lying? Was this all a trick to use her for something terrible? She curled into herself, clutching the blanket tight, her eyes wet with silent tears. Kale was still asleep beside the dying fire, his face calm, unknowing. She wanted to wake him, to ask, to scream, but fear held her in silence. As the stars wheeled above the broken sky, Luma realized her journey with Kale was only beginning. Kindness had touched her for the first time, but so had suspicion, and in her small heart, a storm of doubt and hope raged. She did not know which one would win, but she knew this. Her life had changed forever the moment she whispered her name to the gentle stranger. The morning came slowly, gray light spilling across the broken walls of the outpost. Luma sat close to the fire, her small blanket wrapped tightly around her thin body. Her eyes felt heavy, not from sleep but from the storm of fear and doubt inside her heart. She remembered the whispers from the night, the soldiers calling her the key, the words repeated in her mind like a curse, making her stomach twist. With unease, Kyle noticed her silence, his gaze steady as he handed her a piece of bread. "You didn't sleep well," he said softly. Luma shook her head, refusing the food this time, her eyes sharp with suspicion. "Why did they call me the key?" she asked suddenly, her voice trembling but firm. Kyle froze, his hand still outstretched. He lowered his eyes, his jaw tightening as if he carried a weight too heavy for words. Finally he spoke, his voice low. "It is not for you to worry, Luma." But she clenched the blanket tighter, her small body trembling. "You promised not to hurt me. You promised to protect me. But if I am the key, then what do you want from me?" Her words cracked with fear, her eyes burning with tears she refused to shed. Kale's shoulders sank, the strength in him bending under her gaze. "You are just a child," he whispered. "I don't want anything from you, only to keep you alive." But the doubt in her heart grew heavier. She had heard stories all her life, stories of humans who lied, who tricked, who consumed. Her people had painted humans as monsters with clever tongues. And yet Kale's eyes held no cruelty, only something she did not understand: regret. That day, Kyle decided to show her something. He led her beyond the outpost, across the battlefield that stretched like a scar upon the land. The ground was littered with broken weapons, shattered machines, and the silent remains of both alien and human alike. Luma's small hand clutched his glove. Her wide eyes filled with horror as she saw the destruction. She whispered, Why do humans do this?" Kyle looked at the ground, his voice heavy. "It is not only humans, Luma. Your people fought us too, and both sides lost." She shook her head fiercely. "No, they said we only defended ourselves. They said humans came with fire first." Kale knelt down in front of her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "Maybe they told you that," he said, "but war makes everyone tell stories. Everyone believes their side is good and the other is evil." He looked at the sky, his voice low. "But I have seen your people burn villages too. I have seen them take children, the same way humans have. The truth is not simple." Luma's small body trembled, her chest tightening as if the world was crumbling around her. If what Kale said was true, then everything she had believed was built on lies. Her people's stories, her fear, her hatred, it might all be shadows. "Then who is the monster?" she whispered almost too softly to hear. Kyle's eyes met hers, tired and sorrowful. "Sometimes, Luma, the monster is war itself." The words dug deep into her heart. She remembered her mother's voice, telling her to hide, telling her never to trust humans. She remembered the fire that swallowed her village, the screams of her people, the silence that followed. Had those flames been started by humans, or by her own kind? The question gnawed at her, with no answer strong enough to silence it. As they walked back, Kyle carried a small box he had dug. From the ruins, he placed it gently in front of her when they returned to the outpost. Inside were old records, holograms of the past battles. Kale showed her fragments, images of both humans and aliens fighting, both sides losing, both sides crying out in pain. For the first time, she saw her kind not only as victims but also as destroyers. It broke her heart, and yet it also opened her eyes that night. As the fire burned low, Kale spoke again. "I lost someone too," he admitted quietly, his gaze far away. "My brother was killed when your soldiers attacked our convoy. He was younger than me. He never even held a weapon." Luma's chest ached. She lowered her eyes, whispering, "I lost my mother. She told me to run. She never followed." The silence between them grew heavy, filled with grief that words could not ease. But for the first time, Luma felt a strange connection, a bridge between her pain and his. Later, when Kale had fallen asleep, Luma sat awake, staring into the flames. Her small hands gripped the blanket, her mind racing with new truths and old fears. The humans had hurt her people, but her people had hurt them too. If Kale was right, then maybe humans were not the monsters she had believed. But if that was true, then who could she trust? Where was the safety she had been promised? Her eyes drifted to Kale as he slept. His face calm but marked with sorrow, she whispered to herself, "If he wanted to consume me, he could have done it already." The thought made her heart soften just a little. She lay down beside the fire, pulling the blanket over her. For the first time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, the truth was more complicated than fear. But as her eyes closed, she remembered the whispers of the other soldiers. The key, they had called her. What did it mean? Why was she important? The question lingered like a shadow, and in the silence of the night, Luma knew the truth was still far from complete. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint crackle of the fire inside the ruined outpost. Luma lay curled in her blanket, her small body trembling despite the warmth. Her dreams had been filled with shadows, voices whispering the word key, and the echo of her mother's last cry. When she opened her eyes, the sky outside was still dark, the stars dim and restless. She turned her head and saw Kale sitting awake, sharpening his blade slowly, his eyes never leaving the doorway. "You're not sleeping," she whispered softly. Kale glanced at her, his face calm. "Not tonight," he replied, his voice quiet, almost heavy with something unspoken. Luma clutched the blanket tighter, a strange chill creeping through her chest. "Is something coming?" she asked. Kale hesitated, then nodded. "I feel it. The air is too still. The silence is too deep." Before she could ask more, the silence shattered. A loud explosion shook the ground. The walls of the outpost rattled, dust falling from the cracked stone. The fire flickered wildly as shouts rose outside. Human soldiers scrambled to their feet, weapons raised. Kyle moved instantly, pulling Luma behind him, his body a shield between her and the chaos. "Stay close to me," he ordered firmly, his eyes sharp. Luma's small heart raced, fear clawing at her chest. Through the broken doorway, shapes moved in the darkness. Alien raiders, tall and armored, their eyes glowing with hatred. Their weapons burned with firelight as they rushed forward. Luma's breath caught in her throat. These were her people, yet their faces, twisted with rage, made them look like monsters. They shouted words in her native tongue, words that made her blood run cold. "Return the child, return the key." Kale's grip tightened on his weapon, his voice steady as he barked commands to the other soldiers. But Luma could see the numbers. There were too many raiders, shadows filling the ruins like a flood. The humans fought fiercely, their weapons flashing, their shouts mixing with the cries of the attackers. Luma pressed herself against the wall, covering her ears as the noise roared around her. She wanted to run, to hide, but her legs would not move. Suddenly, one of the raiders broke through the line, his eyes locking on her. "There!" he shouted. "The child is here!" Luma froze, terror flooding her veins. The raider charged, his blade raised, but Kale was faster, stepping in front of her, his sword clashing against the enemies with a burst of sparks. "Stay back!" Kale roared, pushing the raider away, with a strength that shook the ground. The battle grew wild, fire and steel colliding in the night. Kale fought with every breath, his strikes sharp, his movements relentless. But even as he fought, he never let Luma out of his sight. When another raider tried to flank her, Kale turned, blocking the attack with his own body, the blade scraping across his armor. Pain flashed in his eyes, but he did not falter. Luma's tears spilled as she cried out, "Stop, please stop." The raiders ignored her cries, their voices filled with fury. "Give us the key, or all of you will die." Luma's body shook, her small hands covering her face. Why did they want her? What made her so important? Her mind screamed for answers, but the battle gave her none, only fear and fire. Then, in the chaos, she saw it. Kale's shoulder was struck by a blade, blood seeping through his armor. He staggered but kept fighting, his jaw clenched, his eyes burning with determination. "Run, Luma," he shouted, his voice breaking through the storm of sound. But Luma could not run. Her legs refused to move, her heart refused to leave him. He had promised to protect her, and now he was bleeding for her. The clash of weapons filled the air, and Kale dropped one knee, his strength faltering. A raider raised his weapon high, ready to strike the final blow. Luma's scream tore through the night. "No!" Without thinking, she grabbed a broken piece of wood from the ground and swung it at the raider. It was small, weak, but it distracted him for a moment. Just enough for Kale to push forward, his blade cutting through the enemy's armor. The raider fell, and Kale collapsed to the ground beside him, his breathing heavy. Blood stained his side, his hand pressing against the wound. Luma dropped to her knees beside him, her small hands shaking. "Kale, don't leave me, please don't leave me," she cried. His eyes softened, his voice weak but steady. "I won't. Little star, not while I still breathe." The other soldiers dragged the remaining raiders back, the battle fading into silence. The night was scarred with smoke, the ground littered with broken weapons and bodies. But in the center of it all, Luma sat beside Kale, her tears falling like rain. He had fought for her, bled for her, protected her even when he could have saved himself instead. The fear in her heart began to change, slowly, painfully, into something new. For the first time, she wondered if humans were not monsters at all. Perhaps they were something else. Something she could not yet name. She pressed her tiny hands against his wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Her voice broke as she whispered again and again, "Please don't leave me, please don't leave me." And under the shattered sky, her desperate cry carried into the silence. The truth was still hidden, the danger still close. But in that moment, one human and one alien child shared a bond stronger than fear, a bond that would decide both their fates. The battle had ended, but the echoes of it lingered in the air. The ruined outpost was filled with smoke and silence, broken only by the labored breathing of the wounded. Kale lay on the cold ground, his armor cracked, blood staining, his side beside him. Luma pressed her small hands against his wound, her eyes wide with fear and tears. She whispered over and over, "Don't leave me, Kale, please don't leave me." Kale's voice was weak, but his eyes held steady as he looked at her. I'm not leaving, little star," he said softly, though pain edged his every word. The nickname caught her heart. It was strange yet warm, and it gave her courage to hold on tighter. The other soldiers hurried around them, dragging bodies, securing the outpost, but none came close to help. They looked at Kale with pity, but their eyes fell on Luma with suspicion. Some whispered that she was the reason the raiders attacked, that she was a curse. But Kale silenced them with one glance, even weakened. His authority was strong. When night fell, Luma refused to leave his side. She remembered herbs her mother once used, plants that grew even in the shadows of battlefields. With trembling steps, she searched the ruins, gathering what little she could find. She crushed the leaves, pressing them gently to Kyle's wound, her small hands careful and desperate. Kyle winced but did not push her away. Instead, he whispered, "You know how to heal." "My mother taught me," Luma said quietly. Before she was gone." Her voice cracked, but Kale's hand reached out weakly, resting over hers. "You are strong, Luma," he said. "Stronger than many soldiers I have known." The words sank deep into her heart. No one had ever called her strong before. No one had ever seen her as more than a frightened child. That night, as Kale drifted into uneasy sleep, Luma stayed awake, watching over him. The fear of losing him felt heavier than the fear of humans she had carried all her life. For the first time, she realized she wanted him to live, not just because he had saved her, but because he was Kale, her protector. Days passed slowly. Kale's wound began to heal under her care. She fetched water, shared her blanket with him, and even made him laugh with her clumsy attempts at cooking. The other soldiers still eyed her with doubt, their voices sharp when they thought she could not hear. "She's dangerous," they whispered. The enemy called her the key. What if she's a weapon? But Kale defended her every time, his voice strong despite his weakness. "She is not a weapon. She is a child," he said firmly. "And she is under my protection." Luma's small heart swelled with something she did not fully understand. It was not only safety she felt with Kale, but something deeper, a trust that grew stronger each day. She began to smile again, shy and rare, but real. Sometimes Kale would tell her stories of his home, of the forests that stretched for miles and the rivers that sang at night. She listened with wide eyes, imagining a world she had never seen, a world where there was no war. In return, she shared small pieces of her own life before the destruction. She told him about the glowing crystals her people used to light their homes, about the songs her mother sang to her before sleep. Kyle listened with respect, never mocking, never doubting. One evening, as the sun set in blood-red light, Luma whispered, "Why do you protect me, Kyle?" He looked at her, his expression unreadable for a long moment. "Because," he said finally, "I see a child who deserves to live, not a monster, not a weapon, just Luma." Her eyes stung with tears, her throat tight. She wanted to believe every word, but the whispers of the soldiers still haunted her. The memory of the raiders shouting for her still echoed in her ears. "Then why do they call me the key?" she asked, her voice trembling. Kale's jaw tightened, his silence heavier than any answer. That night, when Kale was asleep, Luma sat by the fire staring at the flames. The doubt gnawed at her, but when she looked at him, her fear lessened. She realized the truth inside her heart. Whatever the word key meant, whatever danger followed her, Kyle had chosen her side, and she had chosen his. The next morning, danger returned. A messenger arrived from the human command, carrying orders written in steel. Kale was to bring Luma to the capital. The leaders demanded her presence. The soldiers looked at her with renewed suspicion, their eyes cold, but Kale stood between them and her, his voice firm. "She is under my care, and I will decide how she travels." When the messenger left, Kale knelt before Luma, his face grave. "They want you, little star," he said softly, "and I don't know if it is for safety or for something darker." Luma's heart pounded, fear rising again. "Will you give me to them?" she asked. Her voice shaking, Kale looked at her, his eyes steady, his words sharp with truth. "No, Luma, not unless I know you will be safe." She stared at him, her tears blurring her vision. In that moment, she knew her choice was made. She would stay by his side no matter where the path led. Her small voice broke the silence. "Then I trust you, Kyle, even if I should not." "I trust you." Kale's eyes softened, and for the first time he smiled through the pain. Their bond was no longer born only of fear or survival. It was trust, fragile but unbreakable, forged in fire and blood. And though the road ahead was filled with shadows, they would face it together. The little alien who once whispered, "Please don't consume me," now whispered something new. "Please don't leave me." And Kale answered without hesitation, "Never." The road to the capital was long and filled with shadows. Kale and Luma traveled with a small group of soldiers, their boots crunching on broken stone as ruined villages passed by. Everywhere they went, the scars of war were visible: burnt homes, shattered walls, and silent fields where nothing grew. Luma clung to Kale's side, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. She had never left her village before the destruction, and now the world felt vast, dangerous, and heavy with secrets. At night, when the others slept, Kale taught her small things: how to read the stars to find direction, how to listen for danger in the silence. She absorbed every word, eager to learn, eager to stay close to him, but the whispers of the soldiers followed her like shadows. "She is the reason the raiders attacked," they said. "She is not a child. She is the key to something greater." One evening, as the campfire burned low, a soldier approached her quietly. His face was hidden in the glow, his voice low. "You don't belong with him, little one," he said. "You belong with your own kind." Luma's small hands tightened on her blanket, her heart racing. "They are searching for you, not to harm you, but to protect you," the soldier continued. "If you return to them, you will be safe. You will no longer be hunted." Her chest ached with confusion, his words sharp like blades. Her own kind had attacked the outpost, had shouted for her to be taken, but the soldier's voice painted them as protectors, as family she had been torn away from. Her eyes burned with tears, her voice trembling. "But they tried to kill Kale, they tried to kill me." The man's eyes narrowed. "Because he has twisted you, because he is using you, don't you see? You are just a tool to the humans, a weapon they will unleash when the time comes." The words dug deep, awakening the fear she had carried since the first night. Was Kale truly protecting her? Or was he waiting for the moment to hand her over? Her stomach twisted with dread, her heart torn between the warmth she felt near Kale and the doubt the soldier's words planted. When Kale returned, he saw the tears on her face. He knelt down, his voice gentle. "What did they say to you?" Luma shook her head, refusing to answer, but her silence spoke louder than words. Kyle sighed, his eyes heavy with sorrow. "I know what they whisper, Luma, I hear it too," he said softly. "But you must believe me when I say I will never betray you." Her lips trembled. She wanted to believe. She wanted to hold on to the trust they had built. But the choice clawed at her heart. Her people's voices on one side, Kale's promise on the other, she whispered. "Why am I the key, Kale? Tell me the truth." Kale's jaw tightened. He looked away, his silence louder than any scream. "I don't know all of it," he admitted finally. "But the leaders believe you are connected to something powerful, something that could end this war." Luma's breath caught in her throat. A weapon, she thought, was that all she was to everyone? A weapon to be used, not a child to be loved. Tears blurred her vision, her voice cracked. "Then why protect me? Why risk your life for me?" Kyle's eyes met hers, fierce and unshaken. "Because you are more than what they call you. Because you are Luma, my little star." The words lit something inside her, fragile but bright. Even if the world saw her as a tool, Kale saw her as herself. That night, as she lay beneath the stars, the choice weighed heavy in her chest. Stay with Kyle, and risk being hunted by both humans and aliens, or return to her people and risk losing the bond she had found. The next day, the choice came faster than she expected. At dawn, the group was ambushed, not by raiders this time, but by a squad of her own kind. Their leader stepped forward, tall and armored, his voice commanding. "Child, come with us. We will keep you safe. The humans only wish to use you." Luma's small body froze, her heart pounding like thunder. Behind her, Kale drew his weapon, his voice steady. "She stays with me." The soldiers clashed, steel against steel, voices shouting in rage. Luma stood trembling in the middle, her heart tearing in two. On one side, her people called to her, their voices filled with authority and the promise of safety. On the other, Kale stood firm, bleeding but unbroken, his eyes locked on hers, silently begging her to trust him. Choose, Luma. The alien leader shouted, his hand reaching out. Come with us or die with him. The world seemed to stop, the battle freezing in her eyes. Her chest heaved, her breath shallow, her small hands clenched tight. Every memory crashed into her mind. The stories of humans as monsters, the fear of being consumed, the warmth of Kale's fire, his promise to protect her, the pain in his eyes when she cried. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she screamed, I choose him. The words tore through the battlefield like thunder. Her people stared in shock, their eyes wide with disbelief. Kale's grip on his sword tightened, his voice fierce. Then you'll have to go through me to take her. The alien leader snarled, rage twisting his face. But Luma stepped forward, her small frame shaking yet unyielding. I am not a weapon. I am not a key. I am Luma, and I choose Kale. The soldiers hesitated, confusion breaking their fury. For the first time, her voice carried strength, not fear. Kale moved to shield her again, but now she stood beside him, no longer hiding behind his shadow. The battle would not end that night. The war would not vanish. But in her choice, something greater was born. Hope. The battlefield was silent for a moment. After Luma's cry, both sides stared at the tiny alien child standing beside Kyle. Her voice still trembling in the air. She had chosen, and her choice shocked them all. The alien soldiers who came for her hesitated, their eyes wide with disbelief. Their leader snarled, his voice sharp. You are blinded, child. You stand with the enemy, with those who destroy our people. But Luma's small body stood tall, her hands clenched into fists, her tears drying into determination. They told me humans were monsters, she shouted, her voice carrying further than her size should allow. They told me humans would consume me, but I saw the truth. She turned to Kale, her eyes shining. He fought for me, he bled for me, and he never abandoned me. Her words cut through the smoke of the battle like a blade. The alien soldiers looked at each other, their resolve shaken. The leader stepped forward, anger burning in his eyes. You are a fool, he hissed. You do not understand. The humans only hide their cruelty. They will use you until nothing is left. But Kyle moved in front of her, his voice steady, his blade raised. Then let her decide her own path, he said. She is not yours to command, and she is not a weapon. The fight resumed, chaos exploding around them. The clash of steel rang through the ruins, shouts filled the air, and fire lit the night sky. Kale fought with the last of his strength, his wounds slowing him, but his determination unbroken. Beside him, Luma refused to hide, her voice rising again. Stop this, can't you see? Both sides are the same. Both sides bring only death. Her cry pierced through the hearts of those who listened. For a moment, blades lowered, the fury in their eyes dimmed, and in that pause, a new sound filled the air. Human reinforcements arriving, their banners dark against the horizon. The alien raiders realized they were outnumbered, and with a final shout, their leader pulled them back, retreating into the shadows of the ruined fields. The battle ended, but the tension remained. Kale fell to one knee, his chest rising heavily. With every breath, Luma rushed to his side, her small hands gripping his arm. You kept your promise, she whispered, tears spilling from her eyes. You protected me even when it meant death. Kale's voice was weak, but his eyes were steady. And you chose me, little star. You chose the truth. The human commander approached then, his armor gleaming, his eyes sharp and cold. He looked at Luma with something more than suspicion. He looked at her with calculation. This is the one, he said. The key, the child of prophecy. Luma's body trembled, fear clawing at her chest again. But Kale stood in front of her, even wounded, his voice firm. She is not your key. She is not your weapon. She is Luma. The commander frowned, his voice heavy with authority. You cannot deny what she is, Kale. Her blood carries something that can change this war. She is the future, and she belongs to us. The words struck Luma like lightning, her body shaking. All her fears returned. Was this what Kale had been? Hiding, was this why they all wanted her? But then Kale turned, his hand resting gently on her shoulder, his voice softer now. Do not listen to them, Luma. You are not their prophecy, you are not their tool, you are yourself, and nothing can change that. Her heart pounded, tears burning her eyes. She remembered her mother's voice, warning her of humans, warning her of lies. But she also remembered Kale's hands pulling her from the rubble, the food he gave when she was starving, the way he shielded her from blades and fire. If humans were monsters, then Kale was proof they could also be something else. She raised her chin, her small voice steady. I am not the key. I am not a weapon. I am Luma, and I choose peace. The camp fell into silence, even the commander frozen by the strength in her voice. The soldiers stared at her, some with disbelief, some with respect, and in that silence, the truth began to grow like a seed. It was not humans who were monsters, nor aliens who were saints. It was war itself that had twisted them all. The real enemy was not flesh and blood, but hatred and lies. Days later, the story of the child spread, whispered among soldiers of both sides, the alien who stood with a human, the child who called for peace instead of blood. It was small, fragile, but it was a beginning. And though the war was not over, something had changed. The world had seen that trust was possible, that hope could grow even in the ashes of ruin. As they traveled onward, Luma walked beside Kale, her small hand holding his. The fear inside her was not gone, but it no longer ruled her. She looked up at him, her voice soft but certain. You are not a monster, Kale. You are my protector. And Kale smiled, weary but proud, his voice warm. And you, little star, are the bravest soul I have ever known. The night sky stretched above them, vast and endless. For the first time, Luma did not see it as empty, but as full of promise. Her journey was not over, her questions not all answered, but she had discovered the truth that mattered. Most humans were not monsters, not when they chose compassion, and because of that truth she believed the world could change.